Welcome to Ground Up Growth. I'm Hannah Pittman, founder of Pittman Marketing, alongside my co-host Paul Hopper, principal broker of Hopper Real Estate Leaders. Together, we sit down with entrepreneurs and business leaders to share insights, strategies, and lessons to help you build success from the ground up.
Welcome back to Ground Up Growth. I want to take a minute to let you know that we are now taking sponsorships for the podcast, and we struggle with whether to do that or not, because we've always said that as a podcast, this is not a money-making venture, and we have not deviated from that. And but the opportunity came up, and me and Hannah talked about it, and just the opportunity to, there's expenses involved in putting this on and production, and basically the sponsorships allow us to continue forward, and that's really all it's coming from. I don't want anybody to think that this is a money grab or anything like that. So having said that, we have our first sponsor, Homewell Care Services, our friends Chandler and Danny Ramsey. Thank y'all so much for sponsoring the podcast. And Hannah, tell our listeners about the new sponsorship platform.
Yeah. So like Paul said, of course, it's not a way for us to make money. It really just covers costs. It's also a great opportunity for businesses to get in front of this audience that the podcast has curated of business owners and business leaders. It's a great audience to be in front of, I would say. And so it's a good opportunity for them. How you sponsor, we have a website now, groundupgrowthpodcast.com. And you can go to the website. There's a sponsorship form to fill out, and you can select if you want to sponsor one episode or a group of 4 episodes. But just fill that out, and then it will go to me, and I'll be in touch on next steps. But we'll help you with the script and everything, and you'll get some social posts with it. And so, yeah, check out our website to learn more about that. And in general, if you want to just support the podcast, rate and review. We get a lot of good feedback on the podcast all the time, but we have no ratings or reviews yet. So if y'all could do that, that'd be awesome.
Please rate
and
review.
It will support this venture. So.
Well said. All right. Well, today's guest, we have Miss Emily Grohovsky with Cedar Hill Gardens. Cedar Hill Gardens is a custom vegetable garden company that, I'm trying to hit all these things. Y'all install, you design, install, coach, teach people what to plant, how to keep it alive, where to build it, how to build it, whole deal, right?
That's correct.
It's incredible.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And you have a huge following on Instagram.
Yeah.
Hannah,
20,000 followers,
20,000
right?
Something
people.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
A lot of people are interested in growing food. Mm-hmm. You know?
Well, and I feel like right now, gardening is kind of blowing up.
Yeah.
It seems like I see it everywhere, just people wanting to have that more. Maybe it's because I'm getting in my 30s and this is just what we do. But it seems like it's, as a culture, people are caring about it more. So
Yeah. And I think, COVID kind of jump-started that.
yeah.
I don't know that right now people say it's trendy, but I don't know if that's truly the case, because I feel like gardening was really big for our grandparents' generation, and then it kind of skipped my parents' generation, and now people in our generation, since we were affected by COVID and food chain shortages and things like that, not only has it become important to us just to know how to grow food and where our food comes from, but I think there's a little bit of a scare that made people go, oh, wait,
Right.
maybe I should know how to plant some seeds and grow a little bit of food. And that's where my journey started in 2020 with gardening. That's when it really jump started for me.
Yeah. Well, tell us, jump right into that. Tell us your
So you
history.
started your company in 2020?
I did.
So it was spurred from COVID?
Correct.
Wow.
Yes. So the name of my business is Cedar Hill Gardens, because I live off of Cedar Hill Road. And we moved there January of 2020. And I had 2 babies under the age of 2. And COVID hit 3 months later. And everybody was staying at home and wiping down their groceries with antibacterial
Right.
cloths. And I was at home. I'm very extroverted, and all my neighbors were really far away. And I was like, is there anyone out there? And so I just was like, I've got to have something to do. I've got to move my body. I need to be in the sun. I need to be exercising. And something just for myself. You know, as a mom, you're like coming out of that cloud postpartum, and I had a little bit of postpartum depression. I was just like, oh, I just need some sunshine and to move my body. So we tilled up a little, 30 by 40 area, put some welded wire around it because, if you plant it, the deer are going to come. So we tilled up the Mississippi Play-Doh, as I call it, because if you have planted, it's like planting in Play-Doh. And we had a summer garden and we loved it. And I was obsessed with it. And some things did really well. Some things didn't do well at all. But it was kind of the first time I felt my brain coming back on board after I'd had kids. And I was like, I love this. And, my 3-year-old at the time, or 2.5-year-old, was trying things that he would like never eat if I put on his plate. But if he could pick it in the garden, he was like, oh, I'll eat dinosaur kale because I like dinosaurs, or I'll eat raw green beans or whatever. And so we just did it for our family, and that was it. And for about a year and a half, that was what it was. It was just a pastime. I've met a lot of people over the years who had COVID gardens. They're like, this is what we did when we were bored. And then somewhere along the way, I guess I started posting like pictures of my kids in the garden and things we were eating. And I would get messages all the time like, how do you do that? I have a black thumb. I could kill a cactus. Like, that's what everybody says. And so I thought, there's a lot of people out there that want to grow food and don't know how. And my best friend and her husband are huge cheerleaders, big proponents for small business. And they were like, Emily, you've got to try this, to do this as a business. And I was like, what? I'm a nurse. Like, I clock in and clock out. I'm a NICU nurse. I don't know anything about running a business. And a friend down the road, actually off Mansdale Lake, called me one day and she was like, hey, I want a garden like yours, and my husband can build it. He's really handy, but we don't have any idea how to do it. Can you help us? And I was like, sure. I'll charge you $25 an hour. I was like, all right, little fun money on the side. And so I walked them through how to build it. It's on Swansea Lane right down the road. And they built a beautiful garden. And when they were done, her mom, who lived across the street, was like, well, I want one, but they weren't going to build it for her. And so I said, well, I'll build it for you. And that was like my first venture into construction and doing something as an entrepreneur. They say, what's the term that's like, entrepreneurship is like flying a plane and reading the instruction manual while you're flying it, you know? I was like, okay, sure, I can build you a garden. I think I've seen people do this on Instagram. And so that's kind of where the journey began. And that was in 2022. And by the end of 2022, we had built 22 gardens. And I don't know how I did that, actually, because I had 2 little ones and I was working PRN at the hospital. And we just burned the candle at both ends. But we became obsessed with it and my life changed. So I call COVID the greatest silver lining of my life because that's what came out of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you were in nursing before this,
Before construction.
your whole career.
Not my whole career. So Garden Lady, I'm known as the Garden Lady around here now. So Garden Lady is like my third life, but my first life I was musical and very performative growing up. I did theater and music and everything, and I wanted to be on Broadway. That was my dream, and I lived in New York for a hot minute, and I was like, nope, I do not like living here. I like vacationing here, but I do not like living here. So I took a hard left and moved to Nashville, did music for fun for a little bit, and then I went to nursing school. So nursing school was my second degree. And then I was a NICU nurse for 9 years. And then, when the gardening business started, I slowly stepped back from nursing until I stopped 2 years ago. And I'd probably go back to it in a heartbeat if I needed to one day. I loved what I did.
Yeah.
So do you have any employees?
But I do. I have 4 employees
Wow.
right now.
What are their roles?
And
Have you delegated the construction yet?
yes. So we used to do all the construction in-house, and now I have so many different types of jobs and sizes and complex levels of complexity that I have a ton of subs that I pull from for different things, whether we're doing stonework or sometimes I feel like I own a deer fencing company as well. So we do a lot of fences, irrigation, all of that. But I work with a lot of subs in the area. You find your people who show up, do a good job, clean up well, and then you pay them whatever they want because those are the people you want to work with.
Right, exactly.
But for my employees, a lot of that is more on the teaching and community-based side of my business, which has actually grown almost as much now as the construction side. So, you know, one half of Cedar Hill is the construction, and most of that is turnkey. Some of it is like, hey, we kind of want to DIY some of it, but can you come in and design it and everything? The other branch of my business is the teaching. And it's interesting because when I first started my business, I met a guy who's a local business owner, very successful, and he kind of jokingly but not said to me, you know, your business model is really terrible because you're teaching people how to do and, you know, what they need to do. And once you teach them, then you won't ever see them again. They're not your client. And at the time I was like, wait a minute, is that right? And maybe he's right. I don't know. But what I have found is we have actually created this community now of our clients that we see regularly and coach, but we've also created this kind of local membership program where it's actually grown from 14 members to 104 over the last 2 years. But we meet locally in gardens once a month, and we tour gardens. We stay in touch in between. They're in like a Facebook group. And all of these women who have these like-minded hobbies have gotten to know each other, and now they're all like starting seeds together, starting seedlings, touring gardens, growing food, and it's just this kind of really neat community that's grown from that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's so neat. And I feel like right now, or the past, I don't know, 10 years, and just as the digital age, we've gotten further and further into it. People are craving community in general, but I mean, once you enter adulthood, it's kind of hard to like figure out what that is. And so the fact that as your business model, like part of it is like a community membership, I think that's really neat.
Yeah.
And I think more businesses are trying to figure out like, how do we make a community through our brand and give people something that really connects them and grounds them to the business.
We've talked about that, like for my company, trying to give back, you know, get involved in the community more. You know, be it Habitat for Humanity or whatever, just different projects like that. I would think that would be a really good avenue for like an Eagle Scout project or something for somebody to build.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, almost kind of, you know, I mean, you giving back to the community or involving the community, and then also getting some free labor. I mean, I think that would be.
We like to give back when we can. We did a project last year for the Ridgeland Library. We built a little garden, and they call it their storybook garden, and that's where they have their story times under the oak tree and things like that. We're talking about, I can't really talk about it yet, but we're talking with a healthcare organization in Jackson that's going to be building kind of a garden of hope, for lack of a better term, there and things like that. So I love to be able to do that. Gardening is extremely healing. And I always tell people that most of the time, the reason that you start gardening, at least in the capacity that we do it, is usually not the reason that you continue gardening. And most people, you know, they start because it's so funny. I'll go on like a consultation. And one time I had this girl, went to meet with her, and she was like, we were talking, and you know, when I go on a consultation, we talk about like, where's your son and what do you want your garden to look like and what do you want to grow and things like that. And she was like, can I show you my seeds? And I was like, sure. She had this drawer of like seeds in her kitchen, and she was so proud to show me her seeds. And she was like, I don't know, during COVID, I just saw these seeds, and I was like, maybe I should just have these. But she had no idea how to plant them, no idea how to grow them, you know, whatever. But later, you know, 3 years later, I think for some people, they think, well, I'll save $1, you know, going to the grocery store and grow my herbs or whatever. But I have a lot of clients who might be, you know, caring for a loved one who is going through like a illness or something like that. And the garden is kind of like a place of respite for them. I've got another client who works from home in a very corporate job. And she's like, Emily, like the hour that I'm in my garden during the day in the sunlight is like the time that I kind of revive myself during the day. And, you know, it makes you move your body and get some vitamin D. And so I don't know, I feel like the garden becomes a place of like generosity and reflection and quiet in this digital age, you know, can be kind of a place of quiet.
Yeah, that sounds, it's a lot of benefits other than just being able to eat what you grow.
Absolutely.
That's a good point. Do you get into any kind of perennial stuff or like trees, shrub, blueberry bushes, actual,
Mm-hmm.
it made me think just like going through
Mm-hmm.
even emotional things, where people plant trees for different,
Yeah.
somebody passed away or
Nostalgia.
whatever. I'm a big tree nerd. So like these trees out here, I grew them from like all my cypress trees in my yard. I went to Walmart and picked the cypress balls up when they fell and planted them in pots
Oh
and
my gosh.
did them. Oh yeah. Like,
They're your babies.
so I'm really interested on more of like the tree side of things. Is that a service that, I wonder if that could be incorporated in your,
Yeah. So we do some fruit trees.
I've wanted to start a tree nursery for like ever.
Well, I
What does that
try.
look like? Just like a bunch of trees? Like, what's a tree nursery? Like just a row of trees?
Just different types of
Yeah.
trees that you can,
Yeah, it would, yeah.
And you just look at them?
You just irrigate them and yeah.
just look at them.
It's too much work for me, but anyway,
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I try to kind of stay in my edible plant lane. And I tell people, like, I don't really do landscaping. If you want, shrubs and azaleas and hydrangeas and things like that, I'm not really your girl for that. I can refer you to people who do. But we absolutely incorporate perennials for one, because who wants to plant an entire garden twice, a year? So perennials help you from that aspect, and a lot of native perennials, which we could do an entire podcast on native plants and the benefit of that. But we do incorporate lots of berry bushes. People, especially with kids, like kids generally love strawberries and blueberries and blackberries and things like that. So I'm always trying to think of a sneaky way to get kids drawn to the garden, right? To get them there, and then they start noticing other things. But we do some fruit trees. And fruit trees here, most people tend to say, I want peach trees and
Apple.
plum trees and apple trees. And, some of those things are really hard to grow here. We don't have enough chilling hours in the wintertime. So I do try to be realistic with people with like, we'll do this, but you need to know that like this might not be the same thing as like going to Vermont and picking in your apple orchard, or you might be limited to like 2 varieties or something like that. But absolutely, I think it's important to incorporate all those things.
Because we're in a different growth zone. Explain to our listeners what a growth zone is.
Yeah. So the country is divided into zones. Our zone is zone 8. If you want to get really nerdy, we are 8B. We used to be 8A, but because of temperatures, changes and things like that, 2 years ago, the regulatory body for gardening zones changed that. So if you go to New Orleans and the coast, then you get into zone 9. That's like California. You're not really getting any frost dates. So when you're picking out things like trees and perennials and what you can grow, it is limited by those zones. And that's based on amount of chilling hours and frost dates. It's the reason why, like, we have to put our lemon trees in a pot and bring them inside in a sunny window in the winter, all your citrus. But if you go to New Orleans, you'll see these beautiful, lemon and orange trees that I'm so jealous of in people's yards. So that is what zones are. And leading into that, I think one of the most important things and most valuable things that I can do for people through Cedar Hill has been really honing in on zone 8. So when I was learning to garden, I learned from a lot of different gardeners on YouTube. I learned from a guy named M.I. Gardner, and he's in Michigan, right? And he could like teach me how to plant a plant. But if I was following his advice all the time in Michigan, it might not apply to Mississippi. So I knew when I started my business that I wanted to find people who were gardening in my zone so that when they were watching me plant tomatoes, it was also time for them to plant tomatoes. Because a lot of people think they have a black thumb, but really they're just following the wrong advice. And so like our company's motto is green thumbs are not natural, they are learned. And by that, I mean giving people advice that applies to them where they live.
Yeah.
So
That's really
Let's take a second to talk about today's sponsor, Homewell Care Services. As entrepreneurs and business leaders, we spend so much energy building something that matters, but life doesn't pause for the business. And for a lot of us, that means there's a season where someone we love needs more care than we can give them on our own. Homewell brings trusted, compassionate caregivers right into our home. Companion care, personal care, even specialty care for things like dementia or chronic conditions. What makes them different is that every single client gets a dedicated care manager at no extra cost. Someone who knows your family, tailors the plan, and adjusts as needs change. It's not a one-size-fits-all service. It's care that actually fits your life. If you or someone you love is in that season, I'd encourage you to reach out. Visit homewellcares.com to find care in your area. That's homewellcares.com.
That's really
Yeah,
interesting.
I love that. And we met recently, and I didn't know any of this stuff, like with the zones and whatnot. But she showed me this calendar, and it's like with her consulting and advice she give, just really being an expert in Zone 8. And what I love about you, and you just mentioned that with asking about landscaping, like knowing how to stay in your lane. I think as a business owner, when things start coming at us and we see more and more opportunity, where it's like you could do some landscaping and add that into your offering, and then or
This
go
is
into
brilliant,
different
by the
zones.
way.
It's brilliant.
I've never even seen this.
Look, yeah, take a look.
you.
It's brilliant.
So it's basically a calendar that just tells you when to zig and when to zag, what to do, when to fertilize.
Exactly.
That's,
Yeah. So this is the third. I have two boys. They're 6 and 8, and then this is my third baby. But we put this out 3 years ago. So this is the third version of it. And it is specific to Zone 8. And that encompasses other states, but it goes day by day, and it like has a key, and it tells you not only what to plant, but by what means. So sometimes it can be really crucial if you plant from seed or if you plant from transplant, whether you have success. And then it has lots of tips and tricks. And anyway, we put this out every year, and we've gotten really good feedback on it. And if I can give someone a tool, this is the tool that I give them.
This is incredible.
Thank
It's got
you.
predicted last for all states. I mean, just being able to have a little hub to refer to
Yeah.
at all times. I mean, because I've got, the peaches and the pears and the apples and all the persimmon stuff in my yard, and I never remember to go spray them or do anything. So,
Yep.
And so for
have
the
no
listeners,
fruit.
we're talking about this calendar that she has. That's a yearly calendar that tells you exactly. It just follows the gardening calendar, I guess, and like when to plant things. I will post the link for them to
thanks.
buy it and check it out. But it's really genius. And how did this idea come to you? Because like as a business, you're offering a service with the construction side. Then you have this membership where people are joining this community and kind of paying. But then you have this product now too that's really helpful for people. So how did you start to think about this offering?
Well, the business started with construction. Probably the calendar came second. And then after that, I started doing, about the same time, I started doing a ton of speaking engagements, talking to local garden clubs and different, women's groups. I don't know that I've ever done like a men's group, master gardeners, things like that. And I would always get the same questions. And what I realized is that most people had good intuition and they had the courage to like jump out and start a garden, but they were just planting the wrong thing at the wrong time, or the right plant at the wrong time. And I thought about when I started gardening, and I had to learn by a lot of trial and error. And so I always knew in the back of my mind, I just wish I could take, all the information that I had gathered from like farmersalmanac.com and the Mississippi State Extension and Joe Schmo on Instagram, and like combine them all together with what I was actually seeing in my garden too, and then put that out, into the world for people. So that's kind of how the calendar came to be. And it is just, it's been a great tool for me to give people. And they're for sale. Like you said, you can go to cedarhillgardens.com, or if you put up that link, you can get to it that way as well.
Yeah, I'll definitely.
I also love that we've started using local artists from Mississippi to do the calendar. It's just another way to give back. This is Jenny Futvoy. If you know her, she's an amazing artist in town in Madison, and she did the cover this year. And this is actually a garden. The cover is a painting of her garden that we installed for her, and those are like her actual cherry tomatoes and
that's cool.
carrots and all of that. So it's very full circle.
Yeah.
So I got a couple questions. One, what's the biggest garden you've built or been a part of? And two, what would be the top 3 vegetables that people plant? And three, my third last question will be, what's the most unique vegetable or edible thing that you've planted? Or like, what do I need to go home and plant that would be cool that I could impress somebody with? You mentioned some dragonfly kale or something a minute ago.
Dragonfly kale, dinosaur kale, yeah. um, I'm gonna call it dragonfly kale forever. No, the biggest garden that I've ever been a part of. We did a really cool garden 2 years ago in Ridgeland, and you know, when you're in a specialty and a person just trusts you to like do your thing and do it well, and doesn't give you a lot of limitations, like some beautiful things can happen, literally and figuratively. And so this client really trusted me, and we did this gorgeous, like 14-foot limestone archway that you walk under, and this big metal fence. And, we did 10 beds and a fountain and 12 blueberry bushes. And it's a garden. It is one of the few gardens that I actually maintain weekly. We don't do a lot of like maintenance on gardens, but this one is so big that they need the help. So that one was really neat. And we've hosted a couple of events in that garden as well, which has been fun to do. So that was probably the biggest one that we've done so far. 3 things to grow. Sometimes I base that answer on if kids are involved, because if kids can dig something up, that's like magic in the garden. Carrots are really fun. Carrots and potatoes are really fun. I have several videos. Like every time I have a new client that's digging potatoes for the first time, I always film it because it's hilarious. Because they're like, oh my gosh, it's potatoes. Like they're surprised that the potatoes are there, even though we planted potatoes.
Like
they're
a
so
baby.
excited.
Yeah.
It kind of brings out, like you go back to this like childlike state, where you kind of forget about all your adulting responsibilities and you're like, I pulled a carrot, So carrots and potatoes are really fun. And then green beans are pretty fun and easy. So those are a good starter one. The problem with vegetable gardening is most people, especially in Mississippi, they want to grow tomatoes, right? I mean, tomatoes is kind of like the classic Mississippi, veggie to grow, but tomatoes are probably the most high maintenance and finicky of the vegetables. And so if that's all you've planted and you've tried and you've, quote, failed, then you're like, well, I'm not meant to be a gardener.
Right, yeah.
I'm not,
black thumb syndrome.
I have a black thumb. And I'm like, no, you just need a few fixes and to do some easier things too. Herbs are a really easy way to start because most of them are perennial, so they kind of come back. Good ROI on herbs. And they can take a little bit of shade too. So we try to work a lot with clients on what can you realistically grow with the amount of sun that you have and the space that you have. So
yeah, that's something I would think a lot of people don't even think about is if they've got big canopy, a lot of shade, that would definitely affect. I sold a house a couple of weeks ago, and they had a bunch of asparagus in their garden. I don't know if I've ever seen that. Is that a Zone 8 deal?
Yeah, asparagus is really fun to grow. It is. So an interesting thing about asparagus is it has a really, really deep taproot. And so once you plant it, it takes a couple years to establish, but it will come back for 15 to 30 years. Really? And every year it multiplies by 2. So if you start with, 6 plants that are this big, by the next year, it'll spread this much and spread this much and spread this much. And then you'll just end up with, a ton. So,
Did you put that on the house
and
listing?
I love asparagus.
That they're going to have asparagus for the next 15 to 30 years.
No.
Your home comes
value
with
add.
asparagus
That's a
for
really good
30 years. But no, I
Never
can.
buy asparagus
And
again.
it's funny, if you've ever seen asparagus grow, it almost looks like a prank because it's just literally like a sprig of asparagus just sitting there. Then you just pop it off. And if you've never had raw asparagus, I highly recommend it. But yeah, asparagus is really easy to grow. And then you asked me what was the most impressive
Just like,
thing.
just something, your party trick. I mean, what's
My party trick.
what's like a something?
So, it is kind of fun to have something random like artichoke or something growing in your
Ooh,
garden.
I like a good artichoke. Dip it in butter.
Yeah,
Goodness.
that's always like a stunner. People are like, wait, what is that? You know, but I don't know. All of our gardens, although they're vegetable gardens by nature, all of them have flowers. And the reason for that is one, they're just aesthetically beautiful and people love to have them. But two, they provide, they kind of act as like an organic pest control. And so I have found with my clients, whether they wanted flowers or not, we put them in there, and then every year they end up asking for more and more flowers because they love bringing them inside, taking them to friends, whatever. And so for me, sometimes it can be even finding a flower or like sunflowers like you have in your yard as something to really, I don't know, be a aesthetic and a talking focal point in a garden.
Is that just like a wildflower, or is it like a specific?
It could be specific. So we do some, like every season, we'll do your typical annuals, you know, like in the fall and winter. Everybody gets pansies and snapdragons and things that you see in your landscaping too. But we do some perennial things like coneflowers or black-eyed Susans. We'll put some native things, and I don't know if you know like what guara is, or you know, Stokes asters or penstemon or bee balm. There's like a myriad of native plants that also bring in native bees and bugs and things like that, that in turn help your vegetable garden. So
Walk us through that. You said it acts as an organic pesticide. Is that what you said?
pest control.
Pest control? So is it just deflecting the insect from attacking the plant to hang out on the flower? How does that work? How do they?
That's a great question. When I started gardening, you know, when you start this garden and you kind of invest in it, financially and emotionally, you're like, this garden is for me and me only, and not the deer and not the bugs and whatever. But bugs are inevitable because we don't live in a sterile world. So when I first started gardening, I kind of had this like kill it with fire attitude, and if it moved, it died in my garden. But then what would happen, talking about the dinosaur kale, my kids would go in the garden and they would just start eating random things that I wasn't expecting. And I'd be like, no, don't eat that. I just sprayed that. Like, don't, ingest that. And then I started learning about organic gardening, and I was like, wait, maybe there's a way to do this without dousing everything in chemicals. Yeah. And so that's a whole new mindset shift.
Right.
And the idea of organic gardening is prevention and kind of staying on top of things. So to prevent it, what we do is we kind of confuse the bugs, for lack of a better term. And we try to make our gardens simulate how things grow in nature, right? So if you go in your woods back here, you've got your tall trees, and then you've got things in the understory that are smaller, and then you've got ground cover. So that's how we try to make our beds, and we mix it up. So for example, sunflowers. I keep thinking about sunflowers because you have this beautiful field back there. Sunflowers attract these.
It's an organic sunflower field.
Oh, awesome. I'm very proud.
Oh
Is it not?
I doubt it.
No, it was
Yeah.
pre-emerge and
Yep.
some other stuff spread.
Well, that's okay. No judgment here. You do you. But in my garden, there is this bug called a leaf-footed stink bug, and they will absolutely decimate your tomatoes, right? They pierce into the tomato, they put an enzyme in the tomato that breaks it down and makes it gross, and then they suck out the water, and then they leave. They're little jerks. And so in my garden, I plant sunflowers across the garden in the other corner, and they are attracted to sunflowers, so they act as a trap crop. Okay, so it's kind of like a way of figuring out what can I lure the bad bugs away with, and then also sunflowers lure in good bugs. So that's why we plant flowers.
So interesting.
Yeah, it helps, because if a tomato hornworm finds your garden and all you have is a box of tomatoes, well then they're gone. But if
Nature's
you've got,
amazing.
yeah,
I mean, like you really start to unpack
yeah,
it.
we screw things up. Like nature knows how to do it. We mess it up when we try to, instantly gratify
Right.
with pest controls and things.
Yeah.
And I really can say from experience that you absolutely can grow a garden without chemicals, because I do it and I've done it for 3 years. So it is possible, and that's what we teach our clients. And then what they do ultimately is up to them, no judgment, but we do teach there is a way to do that.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome. Well, we ought to probably wrap up
Yeah.
episode 1. Emily, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to
you.
continue episode 2 with a pointed topic, and we're going to decide what that is during intermission.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is great.